Greetings, Law Masters. Tonight, our discussions are going to be about decisions. In Skyrim, it's all about decisions. For some of these decisions, once you make them, there's no coming back. That's what we're talking about today. Let's get into it.
Hey fellow adventurers, tonight we journey to a Skyrim that quietly closes doors behind you. The kind of doors that never creak open again, no matter how many sweet rolls you offer the universe as tribute. Picture it. Snow hissing sideways across a ridge, a war horn moaning somewhere in the dark below, and two banners, one bearing the Bear of Windhelm, one the Dragon of the Empire, snapping in the same bitter wind, both of them waiting for you to pick one and doom the other. Let's be honest, you were never going to stay neutral. You're the sort of hero who reads the words point of no return and hears helpful shortcut. Tonight we count 15 quests that lock you out forever. Choices this game lets you make exactly once and then never again. So, before we start, please like the video and subscribe if you haven't already. And while you settle in beneath the blankets, tell me where in the world you're drifting off from tonight and what the clock happens to read where you are. Now, take a glass of water and let's ease into tonight's journey together. At the very beginning, before the Dragonborn is anything but a prisoner with a sore neck and a suspicious lack of paperwork, Skyrim asks its first quiet question. Fleeing the ruins of Helgen as Alduin wheels overhead, our hero follows either Ralof the Stormcloak or Hadvar the Imperial through the smoke. And though the game whispers that this is only a choice of exit, it is really the first thread of a knot that will one day cinch shut. That early pick binds no one. It merely decides who buys you dinner first. The true oath comes later, in a war camp or a Jarl's smoky hall, when the Dragonborn finally agrees to wear one side's colors. And here is the plain, unsentimental fact that anchors this whole grim evening. You can only choose one side. There is no secret third banner, no bard's ballad clever enough to let you befriend everyone. Pledge to General Tullius and the Imperial Legion, and the Stormcloak questline seals behind you like ice creeping over a well. Swear instead to Ulfric Stormcloak and his gravel-voiced housecarl Galmar Stonefist, and the Legion's entire arc, its battles, its titles, its whole cast of grizzled officers, evaporates as though it had never been written. When the Dragonborn began, 9 Jarls ruled the 9 holds. 4 leaned Imperial, the lords of Falkreath, Hafengar, Yalmarch, and the Reach. 4 leaned Stormcloak, Eastmarch, the Pale, the Rift, and Winterhold. And in the middle sat Balgruf, the Greater of Whiterun, sweating diplomatically, staying neutral for exactly as long as the world will let him before he too is dragged off the fence. Choose a side, and the map itself begins to bleed. Hold by hold, fort by fort, the Dragonborn marches with an army, and each captured city topples a Jarl. Side with the Stormcloaks, and old Vignar Greymane climbs the steps of Dragon's Reach to rule Whiterun in Balgruf's place. The deposed lords are bundled off into exile, the Imperial aligned to the Blue Palace in solitude, the Stormcloak aligned to Windhelm, there to sulk in borrowed halls and mutter about the good old days. Only Elessif the Fair, widow of the slain High King, can never be supplanted, a small mercy the game reserves for the one throne it once left standing. Every one of these reshufflings is permanent. You never get to see the other version. The friend you crowned and the enemy you exiled stay crowned and exiled for the entire remaining life of that save. And yes, before anyone reaches for the keyboard, technically there is one narrow way to freeze the whole war in place rather than win it outright, a fragile ceasefire brokered high on a frozen mountaintop. But that is a doorway we will open on another night. For now, just know that it exists, that it is dangerously easy to fumble, and that it is coming for us very soon. Now for the part lore masters live for, the tidbit humming quietly beneath the surface. Tucked away inside the Thalmor embassy, discovered during an entirely different quest, sits a folder of dossiers, cold, bureaucratic files the High Elves keep on Skyrim's most important players. Among them is a report on Ulfric Stormcloak himself, and it does not read like the biography of a hero. The Thalmor describe him in essence as an asset, a useful little engine of chaos. Their goal, written in that flat administrative voice that somehow makes it worse, is not for Ulfric to win, and not for the Empire to win, but for the war to simply grind on, bleeding both sides pale so that Skyrim will be far too exhausted to resist the elves when they finally come for it in earnest. The rebellion's fiery champion, the man who killed a High King with a single shout, may well be a pawn who never once noticed the hand moving him across the board. He isn't on their payroll, exactly. He would gut anyone who dared suggest it, but he is doing their quiet work all the same. Which brings us inevitably to the campfire the fandom has been arguing around for well over a decade. Is Ulfric Stormcloak a freedom fighter or a demagogue? A proud son of Skyrim casting off an occupier, or a self-serving opportunist who dresses ethnic resentment up in the language of patriotism and let the Thalmor strum him like a lute? Players have written essays, filmed hour-long video treatises, and very nearly ended friendships over this exact question. The game, rather artfully, refuses to settle it. General Tullius is a competent, decent soldier serving a broken empire that once handed the elves nearly everything they demanded. Ulfric is a genuinely charismatic rebel whose rallying cry of Skyrim for the Nords carries a distinctly ugly undertone the moment you notice how the Dunmer of Windhelm's Grey Quarter are made to live. There is no clean side here. And because there is no clean side, the lock aches all the more. Whichever banner the Dragonborn finally raises, some quiet part of the story is left to grieve the one they didn't. The consequences ripple outward in ways most players never fully register. Guard patrols thin in the loser's capital. After a Stormcloak victory, the Imperial Watchmen who once prowled the corridors of Castle Dor are simply never replaced. After an Imperial win, the upper halls of the Palace of the Kings fall strangely, permanently quiet. Roads themselves change their temperament. Ambushes bloom where safe passage used to be, or melt away where danger once waited, depending entirely on whose colors now fly overhead. It is a small, sad, beautiful kind of world building. The sense that an entire province rearranged all its furniture while you slept, and that there is no undue lever anywhere in all of Tamriel that will ever set it back the way it was. So the Dragonborn learns the first hard rule of this long night. Some doors in Skyrim are not locked by dragons, nor by Draugr, nor by any clever puzzle of levers and claws. They are locked by a single word, yes, spoken to the wrong recruiter, in the wrong hall, on an ordinary gray afternoon that felt, at the time, like it could always be taken back. It cannot. The war ends the way you steered it. The Jarls sit precisely where you seated them, and that other Skyrim, the one you will never once lay eyes on, drifts away into the falling snow, like the last thread of smoke from the ruins of Helgen. Remember that fragile ceasefire we promised at the end of the last tale? The one narrow doorway out of the Civil War's iron either-or? This is it, and it sits, appropriately, at the literal top of the world. High Hrothgar, the monastery of the Greybeards, 7,000 steps above the squabbling of Jarls, wind screaming against ancient stone that has heard 100 wars come and go. The quest is called Season Unending, and it is the strangest, most easily deleted item on tonight's entire list, because to witness it at all, the Dragonborn has to arrive at exactly the right moment, and one wrong flush of ambition erases it as though it had never existed. Here's how the trap is quietly set. Deep into the main quest, the Dragonborn needs a dragon, not to slay, to catch. The plan is to lure the great red worm Odahving into Dragon's Reach, the palace of Whiterun, and spring an ancient trap built long ago by a king who once caged a dragon of his own. But there is a problem. Whiterun sits square in the middle of a war zone. The Jarl of Whiterun, whether that is still Balgruf the Greater or Vignar Greymane if you have already been busy rearranging banners, flatly refuses to turn his hall into a dragon snare while the civil war rages at his gates. Not, he insists, until somebody negotiates a truce. And so the Dragonborn, who only ever wanted to trap one oversized lizard, is abruptly drafted as the peace broker for an entire civil war. Skyrim's sense of humor is nothing if not consistent. But, and this is the whole reason it earns its place tonight, that truce can only be brokered while the war is still genuinely undecided. If the Dragonborn has already stormed through the Civil War, if one side already flies its colors over 8 of Skyrim's 9 holds, then there is simply nothing left to negotiate. The war is functionally over, and so the game quietly, permanently skips season Unending altogether. No summit, no mountaintop council, no unprecedented gathering of sworn enemies around a single table. If you finish the war first, that entire elaborate set piece, every line of its dialogue, all its coiled tension, its whole assembled cast, simply never loads for you. You will finish the game none the wiser, never once knowing what you walked straight past. It is that rare quest you can lock yourself out of, not by fumbling a choice inside it, but by being far too efficient somewhere else entirely. For those who do arrive in time, the ritual is precise. Only the Greybeards command respect enough to summon both warlords into one room, so the Dragonborn first climbs to High Hrothgar to persuade the ever-weary Arngeir to host the thing at all. Then comes the diplomatic legwork, a message carried down to General Tullius in Castle Dor in Solitude, and up to Ulfric Stormcloak on his throne in the Palace of the Kings in Windhelm. Neither man wishes to come. Tullius is the harder sell of the two. A silver tongue helps considerably, the general proving rather more stubborn than the rebel, which is its own small joke. And then at last, the impossible tableau assembles beneath the vaulted grey stone. Tullius and his sharp-eyed legate Ricca, Ulfric and his bear of a housecarl Galmar, young Jarl Elisif, still raw with fresh widowhood, the Blades, Delphine and Esbern having elbowed their way in, and Arngeir presiding over all of it like the world's most reluctant wedding officiant. And, to Ulfric's open disgust, one entirely uninvited guest in fine elven robes. Because there she is, Elenwen, the Thalmor ambassador, the same silk-smooth spy master whose embassy hides those cold dossiers we spoke of last night. Ulfric's very first act at the peace table is to demand she be thrown out, snarling that the Aldmeri Dominion has no business meddling in Skyrim's affairs, which, given precisely what those dossiers reveal about how dearly the Thalmor adore watching this exact war grind on, is one of the very few moments the man is completely, unambiguously right. The Dragonborn is handed the ruling, side with Tullius and let her stay, or side with Ulfric and have her marched back out into the snow. It counts as a single point on an invisible scoreboard, the first tug in a long tug of war over who leaves this table feeling the least robbed. And a tug of war it is, conducted in the driest language imaginable for something so soaked in blood. The great prize is a major hold, one with a walled capital, and in practice only 2 are ever truly on the table. Markarth in the Reach and Riften in the Rift, each worth 2 points to whoever manages to claw it loose. If the Dragonborn leans Imperial or has stayed uncommitted, Ulfric opens by demanding Markarth. If they have already thrown in with the Stormcloaks, Tullius demands Riften instead. Then come the smaller chips, Falkreath, Dawnstar, Winterhold, each worth a single point, shoved back and forth across the stone like a grim hand of cards where the stakes are somebody's hometown. And there is one delightfully specific extra clause. The Stormcloaks, and only ever the Stormcloaks, can be pressed to pay compensation for a massacre at the little mining village of Karthwasten. The whole affair is less a peace than a haggle, everyone rising from the table faintly cheated, which is of course exactly how real ceasefires have always felt. Now for the obscure tidbit that gives lore masters a small, delighted shiver. The name itself, Season Unending, is no poetic flourish some designer scribbled on a Friday afternoon. In the ancient dragon tongue, it is the very term for war, the seasons that never end, the winter that will not break. Arngeir all but confesses this to you, and it colors every weary word he speaks, because the old monk does not believe in this truce for a single heartbeat. He knows it for a bandage pressed over a severed limb, a pause and nothing more. Lovelier still, for those who go digging in the game's buried files. Originally, both factions were meant to answer for their atrocities, with compensation demanded for massacres at several sites scattered across Skyrim. In the final release, only that lone Karthwasten accusation against the Stormcloaks survived the cutting room floor, the faint ghost of a more even-handed war, half deleted, still just visible in the code if you know where to look, which quietly feeds a debate the fandom rather relishes. When Esbern speaks up at the table, Ulfric turns to Delphine and asks her, by name, whether the old man is with her. And there is not one single line anywhere suggesting these two have never met before. So the theory runs, Ulfric Stormcloak and Delphine the Blade share some tangled history. Old comrades, old enemies, old something the game never once deigns to explain, dangled in front of the player and then abandoned entirely, which is pure catnip to anyone who likes their lore garnished with unanswered questions. Others insist it is nothing at all, a scrap of scripting shorthand, a writer's careless shrug. But that is the peculiar joy of a world built this deep. Even a throwaway half-line curdles into a decade-long argument. And here is the quiet cruelty of Season Unending, the thing that earns it a place on this list at all. Even for the player who does everything correctly, who climbs the 7,000 steps and brokers the deal and watches sworn enemies grind their teeth into a handshake, it does not last. The truce is temporary by deliberate design. Sooner or later, the Dragonborn will return to the war, take up a banner, and unmake every careful concession traded on that mountain. Whatever holds changed hands high on that peak will simply change hands again. It is a peace engineered to be broken, a story that lives only in the narrow gap between two larger decisions. And for the player who rushed the war and skipped the summit outright, it is something stranger and sadder still. A whole quiet chapter that was always there, waiting patiently at the top of 7,000 frozen steps, and simply never came to pass. The mountain kept its silence. The warlords never climbed, and the Dragonborn, blissfully unaware, went trudging off to catch a dragon the hard way instead. The road down from that mountaintop leads, with grim inevitability, straight toward another impossible choice, and this one asks the Dragonborn to murder a friend. High on the very peak above High Hrothgar, above even the Greybeard's cloistered monastery, on the frostbitten summit called the Throat of the World, there lives a dragon. Not a marauding one, an old, scarred, strangely gentle one, perched atop a weathered word wall, who speaks in slow, rumbling wisdom and greets the Dragonborn not as prey but as kin. His name is Paarthurnax, and here is the fact most first-time players take an embarrassingly long while to absorb. The Greybeards, those silent hooded monks of the voice, answer to him. Their master is a dragon. The leader of the most revered spiritual order in all of Skyrim has wings and breathes fire, and almost nobody clocks it until they have climbed every one of the 7,000 steps and stood shivering on the literal roof of the world. But peace on that summit is short-lived. Somewhere around the Peace Council we sat through last night, or shortly after it, if the Dragonborn learned Alduin's whereabouts from Esbern first, the Blades come calling with news and a demand. Delphine and Esbern, the last two members of that ancient order of dragon slayers, have done their digging, and they have discovered exactly who sits atop the throat of the world. Paarthurnax, they reveal, was no innocent bystander in the ancient dragon war. He was Alduin's chief lieutenant, his right hand, complicit in atrocities against mortal kind, so monstrous they are still whispered about thousands of years later. And the Blades, bound by oaths older than any of them, will not lift another finger to help the Dragonborn until that dragon is dead. He needs to die, Delphine says, flat as a headstone. He deserves to die, and it falls to you to kill him. And this is where the door swings shut, because Skyrim will not allow you to keep everyone. There is no clever speech check that satisfies both sides, No secret third path where the wise old dragon lives and the blades stay content. Kill Paarthurnax, and you have chosen the blades. Spare him, and you have chosen the greybeards. Pick one, grieve the other, kill him, and the aftermath is bleak indeed. The battle itself is almost insultingly easy. Paarthurnax, for all his ancient majesty, fights about as hard as a common frost dragon, and goes down for a single dragon soul and the usual heap of bones and scales. There is no reward beyond that. No unique loot, no grand title, nothing but a friend's skeleton smoking gently on the snow. And the moment you return to High Hrothgar, Arngeir, mild, patient, soft-spoken Arngeir, rounds on you with real fury. "This is how you repay our trust?" he demands, and threatens violence if you do not leave at once. The greybeards stop acknowledging you entirely. Every stray sweet roll you lift from their tables becomes theft once more. You lose their word wall quests, and worst of all for the shout-hungry, you lose Paarthurnax's meditations, the gift he alone can grant to deepen the raw power of unrelenting force or become ethereal or fire breath. Whatever meditation you had already chosen stays locked in place, but you may never change it again. The teacher is Ash. Refuse, spare the old dragon, and the blades turn their backs just as coldly. Delphine and Esbern will still speak to you, but they will not help you. No blades to recruit, no companions to induct into the order, no radiant dragon hunt quests, no access to Esbern's dragon research, and if you never bothered to grab Esbern's potion, that little bonus is gone as well. Everything inside Skyhaven Temple becomes stolen goods, and you even lose your free bed at the Sleeping Giant Inn back in Riverwood, which feels almost spiteful of them. And here is the quietly eerie part. If you simply refuse the order, the quest does not sit in your log nagging at you forever. Once the main story ends, it just vanishes, no fanfare, no failure notice. The demand to murder your friend silently deletes itself, as though the blades gave up asking and quietly wrote you off in the ledger. Some players, reasonably enough, think, fine, then I shall simply kill the blades and keep my dragon. Skyrim anticipated you. Delphine and Esbern are flagged as essential, immortal, unkillable, shielded by the game's own protective hand. You cannot solve this the murderous way. The two most irritating people in all of Skyrim are, by cruel and deliberate design, the two you are least able to silence. Now the tidbit that gives this quest its terrible weight. Argue in Paarthurnax's defense, and you can, and Delphine offers a chillingly clever answer. His betrayal of Alduin, she insists, does not redeem him, it makes him worse. A creature who turned on his own master once might well turn again, on you, on anyone. His single act of good in her eyes is proof only that his loyalty can be bought and broken. It is a genuinely unsettling piece of logic, and the game hands it to you without ever telling you whether she is right. And Paarthurnax himself seems to know the question hangs over his scaled head. In one of the most quoted lines in the entire game, he muses aloud, "What is better, to be born good or to overcome your evil nature through great effort?" He does not claim to be good. He claims only to be trying, every single day on that freezing peak, choosing not to be the monster he was first built to be. Whether that earns him mercy or a blade is precisely what the blades drop into your lap, the heaviest verdict in the game, handed to a stranger who has known the accused for all of 5 minutes. Which quietly feeds a debate the fandom rather relishes. When Esbern speaks up at the table, Ulfric turns to Delphine and asks her by name whether the old man is with her, and there is not one single line anywhere suggesting these two have never met before. So the theory runs. Ulfric Stormcloak and Delphine the Blade share some tangled history. Old comrades? Old enemies? Old something the game never once deigns to explain, dangled in front of the player and then abandoned entirely, which is pure catnip to anyone who likes their lore garnished with unanswered questions. Others insist it is nothing at all, a scrap of scripting shorthand, a writer's careless shrug, but that is the peculiar joy of a world built this deep. Even a throwaway half-line curdles into a decade-long argument. And here is the quiet cruelty of Season Unending, the thing that earns it a place on this list at all. Even for the player who does everything correctly, who climbs the 7,000 steps and brokers the deal and watches sworn enemies grind their teeth into a handshake, it does not last. The truce is temporary by deliberate design. Sooner or later, the Dragonborn will return to the war, take up a banner, and unmake every careful concession traded on that mountain. Whatever holds changed hands high on that peak will simply change hands again. It is a peace engineered to be broken, a story that lives only in the narrow gap between two larger decisions. And for the player who rushed the war and skipped the summit outright, it is something stranger and sadder still. A whole quiet chapter that was always there, waiting patiently at the top of 7,000 frozen steps, and simply never came to pass. The mountain kept its silence, the warlords never climbed, and the Dragonborn, blissfully unaware, went trudging off to catch a dragon the hard way instead. Now we leave the main story behind entirely and step sideways into the cold, into a different kind of doorway, one that swings on the hinge of a single word spoken in a candlelit castle by the sea. The Dawnguard add-on begins, as these things do, with rumor. Something is stirring among the vampires of Skyrim, something organized and hungry, and two very different groups form up to meet it. On one side, the Dawnguard, a scrappy order of vampire hunters refounded in a canyon fort by a grim, sun-hardened Redguard named Isran, who has watched the vigilance of Stendarr get slaughtered and decided somebody competent had better step up. On the other, the Volkihar clan, ancient pureblood vampires brooding in a crumbling island castle off Skyrim's frozen northern coast, ruled by a lord with very old blood and very large ambitions. And in between the two, the Dragonborn wanders into a black crypt called Dim Hollow and pries open a sealed sarcophagus, releasing a woman who has been asleep for longer than the Empire itself has existed. Her name is Serana, and she is, without much argument, the finest companion Bethesda ever wrote into this game. She is a vampire, wry, guarded, quietly funny, clutching an Elder Scroll to her chest and asking, with the flat calm of someone very tired, only to be taken home. Home, it turns out, is that island castle. And so the Dragonborn escorts her across the ice to meet her father, which is precisely where the door begins to close. His name is Lord Hircine, and he is exactly as welcoming as a 1,000-year-old vampire king tends to be. Grateful, in his cold way, that you returned his daughter, he offers a reward that is really a recruitment pitch, the gift of his blood. Accept, and Hircine makes you a vampire lord, a towering winged horror who floats above the ground hurling blood magic, and you join the Volkihar clan as one of his own. Refuse, and he sneers, banishes you from his castle forever, and sends you trudging back across the ice to Isran and the Dawnguard, who will take in a suspicious former guest of vampires only because you had the decency to bring Serana along. That is the fork, and it is worth knowing exactly how the game slams it shut, because it is sneakier than it looks. Hircine asks, you answer, and if you get cold feet and simply wander off or dither too long over the dialogue, the game quietly reads your silence as a no and boots you out anyway. There are no takebacks at that table. Choose Hircine and the entire Dawnguard questline, Isran's fort, his hunters, his crusade, seals shut behind you. Choose the Dawnguard, and Castle Volkihar's great doors close against you. See their side through to the end, and every vampire in that hall will one day want you good and dead. Here's the strange, slightly lopsided truth of it, though. The two paths are, for the most part, the very same journey wearing different clothes. Whichever you pick, you will chase the same buried prophecy, cross into the same ghostly soul cairn, hunt down the same scattered Elder Scrolls, and climb into the same hidden valley to claim the same divine bough. The story's spine barely bends. What changes is your home and your souvenirs. Stand with the Dawnguard, and you get the genuinely good loot, the craft of forging crossbows and their bolts, a clutch of unique enchanted relics dug out of old ruins, armored war trolls, a whole roster of followers, and crucially, the eventual option to cure Serana of the curse she has carried for millennia. Stand with the Volkihar, and you get to be the monster. Quests that deepen your vampire lord powers, enchanted rings and amulets of night, a coffin to sleep in, thralls to feed upon. It is a real choice of flavor, hunter or hunted, torch or fang. And here is a small mercy the game quietly grants. Becoming a vampire lord is not itself locked behind Hircine at all. Refuse him, side with the Dawnguard, and Serana herself can still sink her teeth in a little later and hand you the transformation. Your hunter comrades will grumble and refuse to sell you so much as a bolt until you cure yourself, but the power is yours for the taking either way. So the thing you are truly permanently locked out of is not a spell and not a form, it's a faction, a home, an entire version of the story. Whichever castle you do not sleep in, you never will. Now, the lore beneath all this is genuinely grim, and it is the sort of thing a player can breeze through the whole expansion without ever fully grasping. Serana is not just any vampire. She is a daughter of Coldharbour, one of the vanishingly rare few made not by disease, not by a bite, but by a ritual pledged directly to Molag Bal, the Daedric prince of domination, in his freezing realm of Coldharbour. Few survived the ceremony at all. Serana and her mother Valerica did, and it left Serana, in her own quiet words, scarred in ways she does not much care to discuss. Her father Hircine was once a mortal king who grew so terrified of his own death that he butchered 1,000 innocents in Molag Bal's name to purchase immortality for his entire family. And the prophecy Hircine now chases, the tyranny of the sun, the plan to blot out the sun forever so vampires might walk the daylight unburned, requires exactly two things, the divine artifact Oriel's bow and the blood of a daughter of Coldharbour. Which is to say, Hircine needs to sacrifice his own daughter in order to win. That is why Valerica sealed Serana inside a crypt for thousands of years and fled into the land of the dead, not to imprison her, to hide her from her own father's knife. There is a lovelier, crueler twist folded even deeper in, for those who follow the road to its end. The prophecy itself was written long ago by a snow elf named Virthur. And Virthur, it turns out, had rigged the whole thing from the start, engineering the entire prophecy expressly to harvest a daughter of Coldharbour's blood for his own bitter, broken purposes. And the fandom? The fandom has two loud, long-running arguments parked right here. The first is that the Volkihar path got robbed. Player after player has laid the two sides down side by side and concluded, somewhere between amusement and betrayal, that the Dawnguard walk away with exclusive weapons, exclusive relics, and a small army of followers, while the vampires get a slightly earlier transformation and a somewhat nicer coffin. For a DLC practically named after the hunters, choosing the monsters can feel like drawing the short straw on purpose. The second argument is simpler and far more heartfelt. Why, in the name of all the divines, can you not marry Serana? She travels with you, banters with you, quietly becomes the emotional center of the entire expansion. And the game flatly will not let you put a ring on it. The outcry grew so loud that patching that omission became one of the most downloaded mods in all of Skyrim's history. Bethesda handed players the best companion they had ever written, and then bolted the one door absolutely everybody wanted open. So the Dragonborn stands in that candlelit hall by the sea, the sad-eyed daughter at their shoulder, the old king waiting on an answer. Say yes, and the world of the hunters vanishes into the snow. Say no, and the castle's doors swing shut for good. Either way, a whole half of the story slips quietly beyond reach. Unplayed, unseen, still waiting in a version of Skyrim you simply chose not to live in. And Serana walks out of that castle at your side no matter what you decide, carrying, as it happens, a locked door entirely her own, one hinged on a single gentle conversation you can ruin without ever once noticing. But that particular heartbreak can keep until another night. That locked door of Serana's turns out to be the quietest and cruelest on the whole list, because it does not slam. It simply clicks shut behind a single kind-sounding question, and you never once hear it happen. To even earn the chance, the Dragonborn must have sided with the Dawnguard and seen the whole grim thing through, hunted the prophecy, braved the soul kern, and finally cut down Lord Hircine in his own echoing hall. Side with the vampires instead, and the option never exists at all. You can hardly ask your fellow monster to please stop being a monster. But walk the hunter's road, put Serana's terrible father in the ground, and a door quietly opens. The chance to give this ancient, weary woman back the mortality that was stolen from her before the Empire was so much as a rumor. She was made a vampire not by choice but by ceremony, pledged as a girl to Molag Bal by her own parents. Ambition, as we learned last night. The cure is her one chance to undo the worst thing that was ever done to her, and the game will happily let you fumble it away without ever breathing a word that you did. Here is how the trap is baited. Somewhere along the road, in a lull between horrors, Serana begins to open up. You can ask her gently whether she was always a vampire, and she will tell you, haltingly, because it plainly costs her something, about the ritual, the pledge, the cold. And then the game offers you a branch that looks like sympathy and is in fact a landmine. You can ask her, right there and then, whether she has ever thought about getting cured. Do not. Because in that exact moment, still raw from describing the worst night of a very long life, Serana hears it as an insult. Hears you telling her to fling away the terrible things she survived and suffered for. As though it were a bad haircut she ought to grow out, she bristles. She shuts the whole conversation down. And somewhere deep in the code, an invisible switch flips over to, she does not want to talk about it, and it never flips back again. From that point onward, no matter how the story ends, no matter how bravely you fight at her side, Serana will refuse to so much as discuss her vampirism. The cure is gone. Not failed, just quietly, permanently unavailable, with no notice given at all. The correct move, the one the game silently rewards, is almost heartbreakingly simple. When she finishes her story, you do not reach for a solution. You ask if she is all right. That is the whole of it. You let her sit with the telling. Let her feel that somebody cared about the wound and not the fixing of it. And that one small grace keeps the door propped open. So that much later, after Hircine is dead and the long war is finally won, you can raise it properly. Ask her then whether she has thought about being cured. And when she asks you why, you tell her the true thing. That she could be her own person again, that you will support her whatever she chooses, that you will walk the road with her. And this time she does not flinch. She tells you she has to do it alone, that she will meet you back at Fort Dawnguard in a few days' time. And when you find her again, the change is written all across her, the gray drained clean out of her skin, warmth flooding back into it, and those cold vampire eyes gone soft and human once more. Now here is the tidbit that makes this whole quiet business genuinely astonishing, the kind of detail only people who go rummaging in the game's guts ever turn up. That invisible switch you can trip is no random flag. It lives inside a hidden system the developers built for Serana and Serana alone, labeled in the files as her mental model, a little running ledger of how you have treated her across the entire expansion. Serana, nearly alone among every soul in Skyrim, is quietly keeping score, not of your deeds, but of your kindness. Whether the cure is even on the table at all depends on whether you've been someone she would trust with the single most vulnerable thing about herself. It is an extraordinary amount of hidden machinery to hang on one companion, and it is most of the reason Serana feels so much more alive than the parade of interchangeable hirelings who will trail after anyone waving a coin purse. The game gave her a genuine inner life, and then let you break her heart entirely by accident. There is a gameplay sting worth naming too, because it makes the choice a real and weighty one. Cure Serana, and you win your friend's old self back, but you surrender a few things in the trade. A cured Serana can no longer turn you into a vampire lord, should that be a power you were still shopping around for. And, more practically, she can no longer craft blood-cursed elven arrows. The strange ammunition that, loosed from Oriel's bow, can quite literally blot the sun out of the sky. Hand her back her mortality, and you hand back the ability to darken the heavens on command, which is, it must be said, a rather dramatic thing to swap for a friend's peace of mind. So the choice is never free. Skyrim only rarely lets a kindness slip by uncharged. And that feeds the argument the fandom has been chewing on ever since. Is curing Serana truly a mercy at all? She is a vampire, yes, but she is also immortal, powerful, ageless. Cure her, and you hand her back a human lifespan, which is only another way of saying you hand her a slow appointment with death that whole centuries had spared her. Some players insist it is the sole humane thing to do, that she quietly confesses, if you actually listen, that the endless thirst is genuinely miserable, and that once cured she says she does not regret it for a heartbeat. Others argue you have essentially talked a deathless woman into dying, wrapped it in the word freedom, and called it a happy ending. And a third camp is simply irritated on craftsmanship grounds, because cured Serana still wears the hood, still flings the same frost spells, still keeps her old vampiric drain, and her dialogue scarcely shifts at all, so the grand emotional payoff amounts, mechanically, to a nicer eye color. The most beautifully written character in the whole game receives the most quietly underwhelming reward imaginable, and players have never entirely forgiven it. But that, in the end, is exactly what makes Serana's the saddest lock we will visit tonight. The Civil War's door slams. The Paarthurnax door arrives with a sword and a fresh corpse. Serana's just closes, a player wanting only to be kind, reaching a little too soon for the fix instead of the comfort, can seal away the single, most meaningful thing they might ever have done for her, and the game will never say one word about it. She will keep following, keep bantering, keep watching your back across 100 black dungeons, and only the two of you will ever know that a door which could have set her free clicked softly shut one gray afternoon. At the exact moment, you meant nothing but well. On PC, there is a whispered back way in through the console that can pry it open again. On everything else, kindness comes with precisely one chance to get the timing right. So when Serana finishes her hardest story and you feel that honest urge to fix it, don't. Just ask if she is all right. It is the only key that fits the lock. From a locked door of the heart, we turn now to a whole corridor of them. The doors the Daedric princes keep. Because the princes of Oblivion do not simply hand out rewards, they hand out choices. And nearly every one of them is a fork where taking the shiny thing on the left means the shiny thing on the right is gone for good. And lurking behind the lot of them is a single quiet achievement most completionists chase. Oblivion Walker, granted to the Dragonborn who gathers 15 Daedric artifacts. 15. It sounds generous enough, until you realize how many of these quests will happily hand you something that looks like an artifact, feels like an artifact, and does not, in the game's cold accounting, count as one. Tonight's first such trap comes wearing the face of a very good dog. It begins, as the best Skyrim quests do, with someone in Falkreath having lost track of an animal. A guard mentions a stray dog nosing around outside the town walls. The local blacksmith, a man named Lod, wants it caught and presses a hunk of raw meat into your hands for bait. But when the Dragonborn approaches the dog talks back. His name is Barbas, and he is not remotely a stray. He is the ancient companion of a Daedric prince, currently in the middle of a bitter spat with his master and looking, essentially, for a lift home. Home, in this case, is a vampire-infested cave called Hamar's Shame. where the shrine of Clavicus Vile waits patiently in the dark. Clavicus Vile is the prince of wishes and bargains, patron of every deal that sounds wonderful right up until the fine print begins to eat you alive. He is also, notably, one of the funniest and most personable of all the princes, a bored aristocrat lounging on his pedestal, positively delighted to have company to torment. He will take Barbas back, he says, on one small condition. There is an artifact of his out in the world, the rueful axe, and he would very much like it returned. So off the Dragonborn trudges to a lonely burrow in the far northwest, cuts down the mad conjurer squatting inside it, and pries the great werewolf-carved axe from his cooling hands. And if you think to ask Barbas about that axe along the way, you earn one of the darkest little stories the game keeps folded into its margins. The conjurer you just killed was named Sebastian Lort, and he was a father before he was a corpse. His daughter had fallen in among the followers of Hircine and become a werewolf, and Sebastian, desperate, loving, and foolish in equal measure, prayed to Clavicus Vile to cure her. Vile, being vile, granted the wish in the cruelest fashion imaginable. He handed the man the rueful axe. The cure, you understand, was the axe. The only way to free his daughter of the beast was to cut her down with it himself. It shattered Sebastian's mind, and he fled to that burrow to rot, clutching the weapon that was at once his answered prayer and his damnation. That is Clavicus Vile in a single anecdote, a prince who gives you exactly, precisely what you asked for, sharpened to a killing edge. So the Dragonborn hauls the axe back to the shrine, and Vile springs his final little prank. You may keep the rueful axe, he purrs. All you have to do is kill Barbas with it. Right here, right now. And Barbas, the good dog, leaps up in alarm and hastens to remind you that this is very much not your only option. Here is the fork, and it is a nasty one. Bury that axe in your loyal, talking, tail-wagging companion, and you keep the rueful axe, a big, mean-looking battle axe engraved with wolves, forged in secret out of ebony, that drinks the stamina of whatever it bites. Or refuse, hand the axe back to Vile, and watch the prince and his dog reunited, whereupon a made whole Clavicus Vile grumbles theatrically and rewards you instead with the mask of Clavicus Vile, a unique helm that grants the best shop prices of any headgear in the entire game. And now the trap snaps shut, because these two rewards are not equals, and the game will not say a word to warn you. The Mask of Clavicus Vile is a true Daedric artifact. It counts toward Oblivion Walker. The rueful axe does not. So the player who takes the axe, who murders the single most beloved companion in the game for a shiny weapon, has, without ever knowing it, kicked one of their 15 required artifacts permanently off the board. It is a double loss dressed up as a prize. You slaughter a friend, and you forfeit an achievement, all for a battle axe most players agree is mechanically nothing to write home about. Slow, heavy, and outclassed by anything you could reasonably enchant yourself. Vile's cruelest joke was never the killing. It is that the thing you kill for was never worth it, and you were already holding it in your hands. There's a quietly eerie detail here too. Barbas cannot be slain by anything else in the whole of the game. He is flagged invincible. Arrows bounce off him, dragons cannot finish him, giants launch him over the tree line, and he simply trots back wagging. The rueful axe, in that one scripted moment, is the only thing in all of Skyrim capable of ending him. Which means the developers built a single, unique key for the sole and express purpose of letting you betray your own dog, and then dared you to turn it. If you simply never finish the quest at all, Barbas stays. He will follow you anywhere, an immortal, chatty, indestructible companion who never dies and never abandons you, which is frankly more than can be said for most of the people in this game. Unsurprisingly, the fandom's verdict here lands just about unanimous, and that near unanimity is itself the interesting part. Ask the internet whether to kill Barbas, and the answer comes roaring back as a wall of appalled, absolutely not. He is routinely voted the best companion in Skyrim, and killing him is treated less as a gameplay decision and more as a moral failing you would have to sheepishly explain to a therapist. The hardened completionists have even worked out a loophole. Save before the choice, take the mask for the achievement, then reload and kill Barbas for the axe, so a single save file can technically claim both. Though even they tend to admit that reloading specifically in order to murder the dog is a peculiar hill to die on. And beneath all the jokes runs a genuine strand of lore nerd theory. Barbas, many argue, is Clavicus Vile's conscience made flesh. The dog is the prince's own better nature, wandered off and sulking, and reuniting them literally restores Vile to wholeness, which quietly reframes the entire quest. You are not merely choosing between a helmet and an axe. You are choosing whether to hand a Daedric prince back his conscience or to kill conscience itself, with the very blade a grieving father was tricked into turning on his own child. So the Dragonborn stands in the dark of Hamar's shame, axe in hand, a talking dog gazing up with an expression no reasonable soul could ignore, and a bored god reclining above to see what kind of person just wandered into his shrine. Take the mask, and Barbas trots happily home, and the world keeps one more good thing in it. Take the axe, and a friend dies for a weapon you will have sold to some merchant within the hour, and a door marked Oblivion Walker swings quietly, permanently shut behind you. Most players, to their eternal credit, choose the dog. And honestly, that is the correct answer, in this quest, and arguably in life. We do not go far from Falkreath for the next one, nor as it happens far from Hircine, whose name we just heard whispered over a grieving father's cursed axe. The Prince of the Hunt steps out of the margins now and into the middle of the story, and he brings with him another werewolf, another cornered soul, and another fork where mercy and a good reward refuse to sit on the same branch. It opens in morning. A little girl in Falkreath has been killed, torn apart by a beast while she played, and her father, a townsman named Matthews, is hollowed out with grief. The culprit sits in the Falkreath jail, a big haunted Nord named Sinding, who confesses the whole wretched thing without much prompting. He is a werewolf, but not a willing, careful one. Sinding stole the ring of Hircine, hoping the artifact would let him master his transformations and stop the beast from surfacing at the worst moments. Hircine, who does not take kindly to power taken rather than earned, cursed the ring instead, so now Sinding changes when he least wants to, helplessly, violently. And during one such change, the wolf got loose, and a child died. He is not a monster who chose cruelty. He is a man who took a shortcut and paid for it with someone else's daughter. Sinding presses the cursed ring into your hands. It snaps itself onto your finger and refuses to come off, which is a lovely little way of making his curse your problem. And then he breaks out of jail and flees to Bloated Man's Grotto, a quiet aspen hollow where he means to lie low. He does not get to lie low. Hircine has scented sport, and the hunters of Hircine descend on the grotto to run Sinding down for sale. And the prince himself appears to the Dragonborn, wearing the shape of a great spectral white stag with a simple instruction: kill Sinding. Bring me the hide of my wayward hound. Here then is the fork, and it is genuinely a hard one. Track Sinding down and kill him, and when you skin his corpse, Hircine manifests once more, delighted, and turns that skin into the Savior's hide, a unique light cuirass that shrugs off 15% of incoming magic and half of all poison. Or refuse the hunt entirely, throw in with Sinding, and cut down Hircine's hunters instead. Do that, and Sinding lives, vowing to shelter in the grotto forever, so his curse can never harm another innocent. And when you step back out into the daylight, Hircine appears, oddly pleased that the hunt went sideways, lifts the curse, and hands you the true ring of Hircine, which grants a werewolf an extra transformation whenever the moon calls. 2 rewards, 1 hunt. Pick a lane. And it is worth doing your homework before you walk in, because Sinding in full beast form is a nasty piece of work for an underprepared hero. Silver bites him where steel shrugs off, fire enchantments cook him nicely, and a well-timed paralysis can drop the whole problem to the floor. Veterans often recommend running the companion's questline first and becoming a werewolf yourself before you ever set foot in the grotto, so you can meet Sinding tooth for tooth, which produces the strange spectacle of two werewolves tearing at each other in a moonlit aspen grove while a stag-headed god looks on approvingly, thoroughly entertained. Hircine, after all, did not come for justice. He came for a good show, and Hircine, being a Daedric prince, has built the choice to bite. By design, you get one artifact or the other. Complete the quest one way, and the second reward is gone the moment the credits of that little drama roll. Kill the wolf for the armor, or spare the wolf for the ring, and whichever you left behind stays behind for good. There is, naturally, a famous exploit that lets greedy completionists spare Sinding, claim the ring outside, then sneak back in and skin him for the hide as well. The aspect of Hircine apparently not bothering to count how many times he's already rewarded you that afternoon. The unofficial patch, that great humorless fixer of Bethesda's happy accidents, slams even that loophole shut, play it clean, and you walk away with exactly one. Now for the tidbit that gives the whole thing its shape. This entire tragedy exists because Sinding tried to skip the line. Hircine is not the prince of monsters, not exactly. He is the prince of the hunt, and his one true religion is that power must be won honestly, in the chase, on the field, red in tooth and claw. Sinding wanted the reward without the ritual, grabbed the ring off a shelf like a cheat code, and Hircine cursed him not for being a werewolf, but for being a thief. And there is a grim symmetry here that connects straight back to last night. A Daedric prince handed a werewolf and a bereaved family, arranging things so that the cure and the crime both run through the same terrible object. Clavicus gave a fathe. There is deeper history in that hide than the quest ever pauses to explain, too. The Savior's hide is no invention of Skyrim. It is one of the oldest artifacts in the whole of the Elder Scrolls. A beast pelt that has surfaced again and again across the centuries, always tied to Hircine, always draped over some hero who survived the hunt when he was meant to be the prey. To wear it is to wear the skin of a man the prince decided to spare and then, in his fashion, to honor. And that is a quietly unsettling thing to strap across your chest when you stop and remember whose skin it literally is. Sinding, in the version of the story where you obey the stag, does not merely die, he becomes your armor. You button him up each morning and go adventuring in him. Skyrim hands you that without comment and lets you feel about it however you like. The community, as ever, cannot agree on the right thing to do here, and this time the disagreement is genuinely thorny. Sinding killed a child, that is not in dispute, and no amount of sad backstory scrubs the blood off. And yet, he did it by accident, under a curse he brought on himself, and he is so racked with remorse that his one request is to be sealed away where he can never hurt anyone again. So is sparing him mercy, or is it letting a child killer walk free with a shiny ring as a parting gift? Players have argued it both ways for over a decade, and nobody has ever really won. And running underneath the ethics is a pettier, purely mechanical squabble. Which reward is actually better? The Savior's hide is solid, useful magic resistance armor that any build can wear. The Ring of Hircine is niche, glorious if you live in werewolf form, near useless if you never transform at all. There's even a long-running dispute over whether the ring reliably counts toward that Oblivion Walker achievement we've been tracking. Plenty of players swear it registered for them, plenty of others swear it stubbornly didn't. And that uncertainty alone is half the reason the Grab Both exploit became a completionist rite of passage. So the Dragonborn stands in the hush of Bloated Man's grotto, aspen leaves drifting down, a repentant murderer breathing hard in the shadows, and a stag-shaped god watching from the tree line to see which kind of hunter just walked in. Kill Sinding, and you please the prince, claim the hide, and leave a grieving town with the small, cold comfort that the beast is dead. Spare him, and you defy a god to his spectral face, claim the ring, and let a broken man wall himself away with his guilt for however long a cursed life lasts. Either way, the door on the other reward swings shut in the dark behind you, and the aspen leaves keep falling, indifferent, the way they always have. From a hunt for a body, we turn to a hunt for a soul, and to the third of these Daedric forks where two shining prizes sit side by side, and the game lets you carry home exactly one. This time the prince at the other end is not a trickster or a huntsman, but something rarer in oblivion, a goddess who is, more or less, on your side. Which somehow makes the betrayal on offer taste worse. High in the frozen mountains above Winterhold stands one of the most striking sights in all of Skyrim, an enormous statue of Azura, Prince of Dusk and Dawn, arms outstretched over the snow, raised long ago by Dark Elf refugees who fled the fire when Red Mountain erupted and swallowed their homeland. A priestess named Aranea Eonith has tended that shrine for years, waiting on a prophecy, and when the Dragonborn climbs the steps, she announces that the waiting is over. Azura foresaw your coming, and she has a task. Her sacred artifact, Azura's Star, a soul gem that uniquely never shatters, that can be filled and emptied and filled again forever, has been stolen and corrupted. It sits now in the drowned ruin of Elenalta's Deep, in the hands of the man who ruined it. That man was Malyn Varen, and his story is the quiet horror at the center of all this. Malyn was once a respected mage at the College of Winterhold, until he learned he was dying and could not bear it. So he turned Azura's Star into an escape hatch. He would hollow it out, corrupt it to hold a soul that was never meant to fit inside it, and then pour his own soul into the gem to cheat death entirely, a wizard's phylactery, a jar to keep his self in past the grave. Perfecting the technique required experiments. The subjects of those experiments were his own students, whom he murdered one by one in pursuit of immortality. By the time the Dragonborn wades into Ilinalta's Deep, Malyn is long dead in body, but his soul is very much awake, curled up inside the broken star, waiting. Ilinalta's Deep itself is a fittingly grim place to end such a story. A fort that sank whole into the lake, its lower halls flooded and lightless. Crawling now with the necromancers and conjurers, Malyn's legend drew in after him. And the strangest leg of the whole errand comes when you finally reach the star, and Azura pulls your very soul out of your body and drops it inside the gem, so that you fight the last battle on the inside of a soul trap. It is a cramped, glittering little pocket of oblivion with almost nothing in it. No scenery to duck behind, no way to fall off the edges, just Malyn Varen's boss-level shade and a knot of Dremora between you and freedom, and Daedra hearts to scoop off the corpses on your way out. Your followers, notably, cannot come with you in there. Whatever waits inside a corrupted god's artifact, you face it alone. You retrieve the ruined star. And now comes the fork, and it hinges entirely on which door you knock on next. Carry the broken star back up to Aranea at the shrine, and Azura herself sends your soul inside the gem to hunt down what remains of Malyn Varen and burn it out. Do that, and the star is purified. It turns clear and white, and you carry home Azura's Star, a reusable soul gem for white souls, the souls of beasts and creatures. Azura names you her champion, and Aranea, her long vigil finally ended, is free to walk down off that mountain and follow you as a loyal companion. Alternatively, carry the broken star not to the priestess, but to a mage named Nelacar, holed up in the frozen Hearth Inn down in Winterhold, Malyn's own former apprentice, who wants his old master destroyed for reasons of his own. Go his way, do the same soul-cleansing work inside the gem, and the star turns black instead. You walk out with the black star, a reusable black soul gem, able to trap the souls of people. And that little distinction is the whole ballgame. In Skyrim, the most valuable souls, the grand souls that power the best enchantments, come most reliably from humanoid enemies, and those are so-called black souls, which normal white soul gems can't hold at all. Azura's Star, for all its holiness, cannot touch them. It's stuck capturing the souls of mammoths and trolls and the occasional dragon. the Black Star can hold them effortlessly. And, thanks to what is politely called a developer oversight, it can hold white souls too, which makes it not merely different from Azura's star, but strictly comprehensively better. An enchanter with the Black Star has a bottomless, self-refilling supply of the finest soul gems in the game, forever. It pairs especially wickedly with a certain soul-stealing mace we'll meet later, from a certain other prince. In pure cold mechanical terms, it is one of the best rewards in Skyrim. Here's the twist that sets this fork apart from the last two, though. For once, the achievement is not the trap. Both the Black Star and Azura's star count toward that Oblivion Walker tally we've been quietly keeping. Whichever you choose, your artifact count ticks up all the same. So the lock here isn't about a hidden failure to qualify. It's simpler and cleaner than that. Once the star turns black or white, it stays that color forever. There is no ritual, no console-free trick, no second visit that flips it. Choose the goddess and you can never have the darker, better gem. Choose the mage and you can never have the goddess's blessing or her priestess at your side. One quest, one star, one color, no takebacks. Now for the tidbit, the game half buries. When you defy Azura and take the Black Star, and then wander back up to the shrine out of curiosity, Aranea knows instantly. She calls you a blasphemer to your face, tells you to leave before she strikes you down for defiling her goddess's artifact, and then, tellingly, she doesn't lift a finger. She just stands there in the cold, furious, and betrayed, and utterly unable to do anything about it. A priestess whose long-awaited champion turned out to be a soul-harvesting apostate. It's one of the quietly saddest reactions in the game, precisely because nothing dramatic happens. She simply looks at you differently, forever. And the fandom, predictably, has been arguing this one since launch, because it is the purest version of a very old Skyrim question. Do you take the moral path, or the powerful one? The min-maxers have no doubts whatsoever. The Black Star is objectively better, end of discussion, and there are followers aplenty elsewhere if you really want one. The role players push back hard. Azura is one of the few genuinely benevolent princes, a goddess who, in the old stories, warned an entire people to flee the volcano before Red Mountain buried Morrowind, and who has done nothing but guide and honor you here, and betraying her on the word of a twitchy mage in a tavern is, they argue, both stupid and graceless. Cross a benevolent prince, they warn, and you may find her prophecies stop being quite so helpful. And a third camp shrugs that trapping human souls to juice your enchanting numbers is exactly the sort of casual damnation the game keeps sliding across the table, hoping you won't think too hard about it. Nobody's wrong, which is why nobody's ever won. So the Dragonborn stands at the fork with a broken star in hand, one road climbing to a goddess in the snow who is offering trust, a title, and a friend. The other leading down to a warm inn and a nervous mage offering raw, guiltless power. Take the white and Azura calls you champion, and Aranea comes down the mountain smiling. Take the black, and you get the better gem and a priestess who will hate you quietly until the end of days. Whichever color the star turns, the other is gone the instant it happens. And this time at least, nobody can claim you weren't warned exactly what you were trading away. The last few princes let you trade in objects and blessings, a helmet, a hide, a colored gem. Boethiah opens the negotiation by demanding you trade in a person. And not some stranger either. Someone who followed you up a mountain because they trusted you to keep them alive. To even find this one, the Dragonborn has to be a seasoned adventurer, level 30 at the very least, or the whole shrine sits empty and silent, the cultists and their book simply refusing to exist until you're grown enough to be worth Boethiah's attention. Once you cross that threshold, copies of a little book called Boethiah's Proving begin turning up around Skyrim, on a shelf in a hermit's icy outpost, in the pocket of a fanatic who ambushes you on the road, tucked beneath a bookcase in a certain abandoned house in Markarth, we will have very good reason to revisit before this night is through. The book tells a parable, and it's worth hearing because it is the entire quest in miniature. A gathering of Boethiah's followers, it says, were each tested and punished, every one of them, save a single exception, the one who murdered the last of his companions. Betrayal in Boethiah's church is not the sin. Betrayal is the sacrament. The priestess greets you, and the pitch is blunt. Boethiah demands a sacrifice. A priest presses the blade of sacrifice into your hand and tells you, in so many words, to go and kill someone you trust. There is a shortcut of a sort. You can skip the pleasantries entirely and simply slaughter every cultist at the shrine, at which point Boethiah, unbothered, will possess the corpse of whichever follower you cut down last and carry on as though this were exactly the plan. But make no mistake about the escape hatch. However you approach it, someone has to die on that mountain for the quest to move. Try to reach the champion's mine without paying the toll, and you'll find the lower tunnels mysteriously caved in, waiting for a sacrifice that hasn't happened yet. The game is very insistent on this point. There is no version where nobody bleeds. Then you point them at the pillar of sacrifice and tell them to touch it. They do, because they trust you, because that is what followers are for. The pillar's magic seizes them, pins them helpless in place, and then you put the blade in. That's the price of admission. Not a duel, not a fair fight. An execution of somebody who came when you called. Boethiah, delighted, reanimates the fresh corpse and speaks through its dead mouth, announcing that one of the gathered faithful will be her new champion. And the only interview is a knife fight. The cultists turn on each other in a bloody free-for-all. The game calls the Tournament of 10 Bloods, and the tidy strategy, fittingly, is to hang back and let a treachery-worshipping cult do what treachery-worshipping cults do best: murder one another while you pick off whoever's left wheezing at the end. Last one breathing wins, and if you've played it smart, that's you. Boethiah then names her one condition for making you champion. Her current champion has grown soft and unworthy and must die. He waits at Knife Point Ridge, a bandit-choked mine northwest of Falkreath, wearing the prize. You're asked to kill him quietly, though the prince doesn't actually care if you botch the stealth, treachery being flexible about method. Cut him down, peel the armor off his cooling body, and it's yours. The ebony mail, a unique heavy cuirass that muffles your every footstep to silence and leaks a poisonous aura that gnaws at anything foolish enough to stand near you. It is, for a sneaking swordsman, genuinely superb, and it carries a history far longer than this one grim errand. The ebony mail is one of the oldest and most storied artifacts in the Elder Scrolls, an ancient gift of Boethiah that has passed from champion to champion down the ages, each of them eventually deemed unworthy and stripped of it by the next. Which is a quietly ominous thing to notice, if you think about it, because it means the armor you just pulled off a dead man is armor a future adventurer may one day pull off of you. Boethiah keeps no permanent favorites. She only keeps the game going. But the lock, the thing that lands this quest on tonight's list, was never the armor or the mine. It's that follower. Whoever you led to the pillar is dead, permanently, unrecoverably, and everything they were is dead with them. Sacrifice a faceless hireling from a tavern, and you've lost a mercenary you'd have forgotten by nightfall. But sacrifice the wrong person, a unique follower with their own quest line, a companion who'd have unlocked content down the road, or in the nightmare scenario, your own husband or wife, and you have quietly bolted a whole set of doors shut forever, all for a jacket. The game only forbids you from sacrificing the truly essential, the immortal plot-critical few. Everyone else is fair game, including a great many people the game would very much have liked you to keep. There is no take-back. Boethiah does not do refunds. Now for the tidbit that reaches all the way down to the roots of the world. Boethiah is not merely some murder cult patron. She is, astonishingly, one of the good Daedra, revered by the Dark Elves, standing right alongside benevolent Azura from last night in the Dunmer's Holy Trinity. And her signature deed in the old myths is the ultimate act of treachery as creation. Boethiah devoured a rival god, the stern Aldmeri deity Trinimac, spoke with his stolen voice to lead his faithful astray, and, there is no delicate way to phrase this, passed him back out transformed, birthing both the vengeful spirit Malakath and the ash-skinned Chimer who would one day become the Dunmer themselves. An entire people owe their existence to a betrayal so absolute it rewrote a god from the inside. When Boethiah asks you to murder someone who trusts you, she isn't testing whether you're capable of cruelty. She's inviting you to participate in the founding principle of her whole domain. The community, meanwhile, has turned "Who do I sacrifice to Boethiah?" into an entire cottage industry of grim comedy. The most popular answer is to hire the cheapest, most personality-free mercenary you can find in a tavern, walk them up the mountain, and stab them, which players cheerfully admit is arguably far more sociopathic than sacrificing someone with an actual story, because you recruited a total stranger for the express and sole purpose of murdering them for loot. Others nominate Lydia, the long-suffering housecarl, and the phrase, "Lydia, touch the pillar," has become one of those dark little in-jokes the fandom passes around like a shared bruise. And beneath the gallows humor sits real debate. Is it better to sacrifice someone who arguably deserves it, some reformed bandit or shady rogue, so at least there's a whisper of justice in it? Or is that just a story you tell yourself so the killing feels tidier? There's no clean answer, which is precisely the point. Boethiah doesn't want a clean answer. She wants you to do the thing and know exactly what you did. So the Dragonborn stands atop that wind-blown Sacellum, blade in hand, a trusting companion beside the pillar waiting for the next instruction, and a goddess of betrayal watching hungrily from her carved perch. Say the word, guide them to the stone, and the armor is yours. Silent-footed, poison-wreathed, one more artifact for the collection. But the door you close behind you isn't made of stone or magic. It's made of a person, and it stays shut for the rest of the game, and no achievement, no matter how shiny, ever quite fills the space where they used to walk 2 steps behind you. For most of tonight, mercy has been the rewarded path. Spare the dog, keep the dog. Spare the werewolf, earn the ring. Be gentle with Serana, and the door stays open. So here is a quest that flips the whole arrangement over and grins at you. A quest where being a good person is precisely what locks you out of the prize, where the only road to the artifact runs directly through an innocent man's chest. It begins, harmlessly enough, with a pamphlet. Somewhere past level 20, a courier hands the Dragonborn a flyer advertising a brand new museum up in the frozen northern town of Dawnstar. Free admission, come one, come all. The Museum of the Mythic Dawn, it's called, and its proud owner is a man named Silas Vesuvius. Wander up to it and you'll catch Silas mid-argument with the town's court wizard, Medina, who is hissing at him that his ancestors would be ashamed. Because the Mythic Dawn, you see, was not a nice club. It was the Daedric cult that worshipped Mehrunes Dagon, the one that assassinated Emperor Uriel Septim and cracked the whole world open into the Oblivion Crisis generations ago. Silas's family were members, and rather than bury that shame, Silas has built a shrine to it, polished the relics, and hung out a sign inviting strangers to admire the cult that toppled an empire. He is, to be clear, more embarrassing than evil, a man so mortified by his bloodline that he's overcorrected straight into fanboy. Silas has a job. He wants the Dragonborn to collect the scattered pieces of his family's greatest heirloom, Mehrunes' razor, a dagger of Mehrunes Dagon himself, broken into 3 fragments, hilt, blade, and pommel, and hidden away across Skyrim. So off you go, clearing 3 dungeons, gathering 3 shards, and hauling them back to a grateful Silas, who pays you a handsome pile of gold and asks you to meet him at the shrine of Mehrunes Dagon, out on a lonely mountaintop between Hallmarch and the Pale, to have the blade made whole again. And here is a small, delicious detail for the light-fingered. The moment Silas leaves his house and starts trudging toward the shrine, his museum sits unguarded, and his precious display cases are ripe for a patient burglar with a good lock-picking hand. Tucked inside are the 4 Mythic Dawn commentaries, the actual ravings of Mankar Cameron, the cult's mad leader, the same volumes that surfaced back in the Oblivion Crisis. And if you'd rather not murder Silas later, this quiet window while he's out is very possibly your only chance to ever read them. A man leaves his shrine to a dark god unlocked, and the smart move is to rob it while he's gone. Skyrim rewards the reader and the thief in the same breath. And this is where the trapdoors start opening beneath your feet, because there are 2 different ways to lose Mehrunes' razor forever, and only one narrow path between them that leads to actually holding it. The first trapdoor is timing. If, at any point before you invoke Dagon at that shrine, you decide Silas is annoying and simply kill him, a stray arrow, a moment of impatience, a dragon that eats him in the street, the quest fails on the spot and never recovers. The razor shards turn to untouchable set dressing. The shrine door refuses to open. Whatever pieces you gathered are frozen in place, uninteractable, dead weight in the world. The game will let you wander back after a week to farm some respawned Daedra hearts off the guardian demons, but the razor itself is gone for that entire save. Kill the man too soon, and you've locked yourself out with your own blade. The second trapdoor is mercy, and this is the cruel one. Make it to the shrine correctly, and Silas discovers he can't get Dagon to lift a claw for him, so he asks you to try instead. You touch the altar, and the Lord of Change manifests in a swirl of that particular Daedric contempt reserved for mortals who come asking favors. And Mehrunes Dagon, a prince who would genuinely rather spill blood than repair a knife, makes his terms plain. He'll reforge the razor on one condition: you kill Silas, right here. And Silas, hearing this, panics and offers you 500 gold to spare his life, promising he'll take the pieces home and lock them away where they can do no harm. Here is the fork. Kill Silas, and Dagon rebuilds the razor and drops it, gleaming and whole, into your hands, telling you to go forth and spread chaos. Spare Silas, and he bolts back to his museum with the shards, seals them inside a display case that can never again be opened, and the razor is denied to you. The words the game uses are as good as a tombstone: forever onward. Sit with that a moment. The single artifact at the heart of this quest can only be obtained by murdering a frightened, harmless museum curator who is, in that moment, literally begging you for his life and offering you money to let him go. Every instinct the game has spent hours training into you. Spare the trusting one, take the high road, mercy is rewarded, is a lie here. Mercy gets you nothing but a warm feeling and an empty dagger slot. The good ending and the artifact live on opposite sides of a door, and you cannot walk through both. Now for the tidbit that gives this whole affair its weight, and it's a genuinely unsettling one. Mehrunes' razor was not simply lost. After the Oblivion Crisis, after Mehrunes Dagon nearly burned the world down through his mythic dawn worshippers, the razor was deliberately shattered, its pieces scattered on purpose, specifically to strip away the foothold Dagon still had in the mortal realm. Breaking that dagger was an act of cosmic housekeeping, a door the world quietly bolted shut against a hostile god, which means the errand Silas so cheerfully hires you for is the undoing of that safeguard. You are not restoring a family heirloom. You are reassembling, piece by piece, a key that someone very wise once broke to keep a Daedric prince locked out. And your reward for finishing the job is the key itself, still warm from the forge, purchased with a life. The community, unsurprisingly, has feelings. The purely practical crowd points out that Mehrunes' razor is one of the best daggers in the game. Every strike carries a small chance to simply sever the target's thread of life and kill them outright, boss or bandit, or anything unlucky in between, which turns a fast, sneaky assassin into a walking coin flip of instant death. Worth a curator's life? They shrug. The role players recoil. Silas never hurt anyone, and putting a blade in a pleading man for loot is exactly the sort of thing an actual villain does. And a third, sneakier camp argues something more interesting, that killing Silas might be the responsible choice, because a man obsessed enough to reforge Mehrunes Dagon's personal weapon is precisely the sort of man who might, one quiet evening, decide to use it. The truest sign of how much this one's stuck in players' throats is the sheer number of mods built to add a third way out. Spare Silas and still get the razor, reforge it yourself at a normal anvil, anything to escape the game's flat little ultimatum. Bethesda offered exactly 2 doors, and thousands of players spent years building a third. So the Dragonborn stands in that wind-swept shrine, 3 shards on the altar, a Daedric prince rumbling for blood, and a soft, foolish, thoroughly non-threatening man on his knees offering gold for his life. Take the mercy, and Silas scurries home to seal the pieces away, and the razor slips beyond your reach for good. Take the blade, and the dagger is yours, flawless, ancient, humming with the promise of sudden death, bought at the price of the one person in this whole story who genuinely did not deserve to die. There is no version where you keep your hands clean and keep the knife. The game made very sure of that. We stay in Markarth for this one, the gray stone city carved into a mountainside in the Troubled Reach, because the game apparently decided one innocent man lured to his death for an artifact wasn't quite enough for a single evening. This time the harmless soul on the menu is a priest, and this time the game doesn't merely ask you to kill him. It asks you to eat him. It opens as a favor, the way the darkest things so often do. Rumors drift around the Silver Blood Inn that the city's Hall of the Dead has been sealed shut, and the townsfolk are unhappy. They can't visit their departed loved ones, and they're starting to resent the man responsible. That man is Brother Verulus, a gentle priest of Arche, the god of the cycle of life and death and the keeping of graves. Verulus didn't close the hall out of spite. He closed it because bodies were being defiled down there in the dark, desecrated by something he couldn't explain, and he's been quietly horrified about it ever since, which, given that his entire calling is the dignity of the dead, is about the worst thing that can happen to a man in his line of work. He lets the Dragonborn go in to investigate, and in the crypt something whispers. A voice greets you as though it already knows you, as though it assumes you have tasted human flesh before. Its owner is a woman named Iola, cool and charming and entirely at ease among the corpses, who has decided, on no evidence whatsoever, that you're one of her kind. Play along, and she tells you the truth of it. She leads a coven of cannibals devoted to Namira, the Lady of Decay, and they've been feasting on Markarth's dead because their true shrine, out in Reachcliff Cave, got overrun by risen Draugr and driven them out. Clear the cave, she offers, and the coven will leave the Hall of the Dead in peace. So you go, and Reachcliff Cave turns out to be exactly the sort of Nordic tomb the game excels at. A long descent through cobwebbed halls where the dead do not care to stay dead, Draugr lurching up out of their alcoves the moment your torchlight touches them, a boss waiting in the deep. Iola can come along and fight beside you, or wait outside and let you do the honest work of clearing it. Either way, at the bottom you find Namira's altar and a very grateful Iola with an invitation to dinner. And there is a small, sly detail worth knowing before you commit to any of this. Iola carries a journal, and her whole hold on the quest runs through her. Cut her down too early and let her body vanish, and the threads simply frays. The coven scatters back into anonymity, and the road to Namira's ring closes without ever announcing that it has. Except dinner needs a main course. To be initiated into the coven, Iola explains, you must bring a fresh kill to the shrine, and she has someone specific in mind, Brother Verulus, the kind priest who sent you down there to help. She hands you 100 gold for expenses, as though you're picking up groceries, and sends you back to Markarth to sweet-talk a trusting man of the cloth into following you into a cave full of people who intend to eat him. He comes because of course he comes. He thinks you're helping. And when you lead him into the final chamber, there's a proper feast laid out. A long table, candles, and seated around it, a cross-section of respectable Markarth, a shopkeeper, a stable hand. Ordinary faces you may well have passed in the market that morning, all of them cannibals, all of them smiling. Iola works her honeyed, magic-laced persuasion on poor Verulus until he agrees, bewildered, to lie down upon the altar and rest. And then the game gives you your instruction, blunt as a cleaver. Carve him, you draw a blade, and you kill the priest where he lies. And then a second prompt appears, the one that makes this quest infamous, taste. You feed, and Namira herself, the Prince of Rot and Revulsion, purrs her congratulations and slips the ring of Namira onto your finger. Here then is the lock, and it works exactly like last night's dagger, only worse. That ring is a genuine Daedric artifact, one of the 15 the completionists need for Oblivion Walker, and there is precisely one way to get it, which is to see the cannibal ritual all the way through to the swallowing, refuse at any point, and it's gone for good. Snap at Iola with the wrong hostile line back in the crypt, and she attacks instantly, no yielding, the quest failing on the spot. Or go all the way to the feast, look at Verulus lying there trusting you, feel your conscience finally catch up, and turn on the coven instead. Kill Iola and every diner at that table and free the priest, and the quest fails just the same. You'll get a grateful thank you from Verulus, a fat purse of gold, and a nice little amulet of Arche for your trouble. What you will not get ever on that save is the ring of Namira. Mercy is once again the locked door. The only key is the unthinkable. Now for the tidbit that curls under the whole grim affair. Namira is not a prince of grand ambition or clever bargains like the ones we've met. She is the Lady of Decay, the patron of everything that rots and crawls and hides in the dark, of disease, of revulsion, of the outcast and the reviled. Her domain is the stuff people avert their eyes from. And that's what makes her coven so quietly disturbing. It isn't a den of obvious monsters. It's a shopkeeper you were running an errand for, a stable hand, ordinary citizens of a functioning town who put on their normal faces every day and slip away at night to eat the dead beneath a priest's own crypt. Namira doesn't recruit the villainous. She recruits the hungry, the hidden, the ones already living in society's shadows. And she reminds you that the truly repulsive thing was never lurking in a cave. It was seated at the market stall, smiling all along. The community's verdict on this one is unusually lopsided, and it's not really about morality, it's about value. Because here is the punchline that makes players groan. The Ring of Namira is widely considered one of the weakest artifact rewards in the entire game. Its power lets you feed on corpses for a modest temporary bump to your health and its regeneration, which is a fine little perk if you happen to be a wandering cannibal, but does approximately nothing for anyone who isn't. So the deal on the table is murder and devour a blameless priest, brand your character a flesh eater forever, all in exchange for a ring most people take off and never think about again. If you're not chasing the Oblivion Walker trophy, seasoned players will tell you flatly, this is one you can simply walk away from. Spare Verulus, pocket the gold, and let the coven starve. And the role players who do complete it almost universally describe eating exactly one priest, collecting the ring and never feeding again, cannibals of strict and singular appetite, in it purely for the paperwork. So the Dragonborn stands in that candlelit dining hall, a good and gentle priest laid trusting on the stone, a table of ordinary neighbors watching with knives and forks, and a goddess of decay whispering that the last step is the only one that counts. turn on them, and Verilus lives, and you walk out with clean hands and a clear conscience and no ring at all. Carve him and taste him, and the artifact is yours, bought with a life and a piece of your soul. Both of them spent on a trinket you'll likely forget you're wearing. There is no version where the priest lives, and the ring is yours. Namira, Lady of the Reviled, would not dream of making it that easy. We have walked past this next house 3 times already tonight. It's the abandoned house in Markarth, the one where a copy of Boethiah's book turns up under a bookcase. The crooked little building up the street from the main gate that everyone in town gives a wide berth. Tonight we finally go inside, and I should warn you, of everything on this list, this is the quest most likely to make a first-time player set the controller down and stare at the wall for a while. It begins with a stranger doing his job. A vigilant of Stendarr, one of an order sworn to hunt down Daedra and root out their influence wherever it festers, has come to Markarth asking pointed questions about that abandoned house. His name is Tyrannus, and he's convinced the place is a site of Daedric corruption. He's right, of course. He's just fatally wrong about his odds. When he spots the Dragonborn, he asks for help investigating the house, and the two of you step inside together to have a look. The door slams behind you. That's when the house stops being a house. Doors seal themselves, furniture slides, and a voice begins to speak from nowhere and everywhere. Amused, patient, cruel. It's Molag Bal, the Lord of Domination, the Prince of Enslavement and the Harvesting of Souls, and he has been waiting a long, patient while for 2 fresh mortals to wander into his web. The whole house, you slowly realize, is not haunted so much as it is a mouth, a thing that lured you in and closed. He decides on a whim that he'd like to see one of them break the other. He turns Tyrannus against you, or, if you try to flee, whispers the vigilant into attacking to save his own skin, and there is no talking your way out of it. You kill Tyrannus. The good man who came to purge this place dies on its floor, and the god laughs. With the vigilant's blood on the boards, a hidden passage grinds open, and you descend into the true house of horrors, a basement that is no longer quite of this world, its walls crawling with Daedric runes, an altar glowing sullen red at its heart, and a rusty old mace jutting from the stone. Reach for the mace and the trap snaps. You're caged, and Molag Bal settles in for a chat. This mace of his, he explains, was once mighty until priests of his rival Boethiah desecrated it and its altar. One such priest used to come regularly to defile the place, but he stopped showing up because he's been imprisoned elsewhere. Molag Bal wants him found. He wants him brought here. He has plans. The priest is Logrolf the Willful, and you find him caged in a forsworn camp somewhere out in the Reach. A stubborn old man of Boethiah who has clearly tangled with Molag Bal before and is not remotely pleased to see you. You free him, clearing out his captors, prying open his cage, and here the first trapdoor yawns. Logrolf, once loose, sets off on his own 2 feet back toward the abandoned house in Markarth, and if anything kills him on the way, a lurking forsworn, a stray arrow, a careless swing of your own, the quest fails outright, and the mace of Molag Bal is lost to that save forever. You have to shepherd a frail, uncooperative old priest across dangerous country like the world's darkest escort mission, protecting the very man you're leading to his doom. He makes it. He walks into the house on his own legs, and Molag Bal seizes him and pins him at the altar. And then the game does the thing it is remembered for. The rusty mace appears in your hands, and Molag Bal commands you to beat Logrolf. Not fight him, beat him, a defenseless captive until he dies. So you do, and Molag Bal drags him back from death to do it again, and the old priest takes his second beating and finally brokenly submits, renouncing Boethiah, pledging his soul to the very prince who tortured it out of him. And for his submission, his reward is that Molag Bal has you kill him one last time, a mercy stroke on a man who has nothing left. That is the ritual. That is what makes the mace. Molag Bal, delighted, transforms the rusted thing into the mace of Molag Bal, tells you he'll be watching, mentions offhand that he has a soul waiting in oblivion to go claim, and asks you to mind the house while he's out. Then he's gone, laughing, and you're left standing over two corpses in a basement holding a brand new god weapon. And it is, for the record, a genuinely nasty weapon in the right hands. Every blow drains a target's magicka and stamina, and once their stamina hits nothing, the mace reaches in and traps their soul outright. Which means, if you remember that reusable black gem we argued over up in Winterhold, this is its perfect dance partner. Beat an enemy limp with Molag Bal's mace, catch their soul in the Black Star, and you've got an endlessly self-refilling engine for enchanting. Two of the grimmest quests on this list, quietly designed to shake hands. The lock, by now, is a familiar shape. That mace is a Daedric artifact, another of the 15 for Oblivion Walker, and the only road to it runs through a murdered vigilant and a tortured priest. Refuse Tyrannus at the door, brush off his questions, decline to help, and the house simply never opens. The quest quietly fails, and in a lovely bleak little epilogue, Tyrannus gives up on the whole business, wanders down to the Silver Blood Inn, and becomes a permanent fixture at the bar, drinking away a crisis of faith he never quite understood. He lives, you just don't get the mace, and if you free Logrolf only to see him cut down before he reaches the altar, same result, no mace, ever. The clean hands and the artifact remain, as they have all night, on opposite sides of a locked door. Now for the tidbit that ties this dark little basement to something we visited nights ago, and it recolors everything. That voice in the house, the Lord of Domination toying with two mortals for sport, is the very same Molag Bal who, long ago, created the first vampire and who fathered the line of the Daughters of Cold Harbor. He is the prince who made Serana what she is, who scarred that weary, wonderful woman in a ceremony so cruel she can barely speak of it. The god casually torturing a priest in Markarth for a laugh is the same god whose shadow falls across the entire Dawnguard story. And the priest you're breaking serves Boethiah, Molag Bal's ancient rival, the treachery goddess from her own wind-blown shrine. This whole grim errand is two Daedric princes settling a feud through the bodies of mortals too small to matter to either of them, and you're the hand they're using to do it. The community has spent years wrestling with this one, because it is widely, genuinely regarded as the darkest quest in the base game. A full-on horror sequence dropped into a fantasy adventure, complete with a haunted house, a helpless victim, and a torture scene the game makes you perform yourself. Some players simply refuse to do it, Molag Bal being about the only prince with no charm, no wit, and no redeeming ambiguity whatsoever, just appetite. Others tie themselves in elaborate rationalizations to sleep at night. Tyrannus attacked first, so that's self-defense. Logrolf worshipped a treacherous deity anyway, so who's to say? And you can, if you're squeamish, one-shot the old man rather than draw it out. And a great many players quietly conclude that the truly heroic playthrough is the one where you turn Tyrannus away at the door, let a good man live out his days as a sad drunk in a tavern, and simply never own the mace at all. In a game overflowing with power, sometimes the strongest thing you can do is walk away from a house that wants you. Not every locked door in Skyrim is bolted by a god. Some are bolted by the game itself. And so we leave the Daedric princes behind. No more mutually exclusive artifacts, no more innocence on altars, and turn to a quest that locks you out not through any choice you make, but through the sheer legendary fragility of the thing it's built on. Welcome to Windhelm, and to Blood on the Ice, the finest murder mystery in the game, wrapped in possibly the worst-behaved script Bethesda ever shipped. It's set in Ulfric's cold stone capital, the same brooding city we crossed swords over on the very first night of this list. A killer is loose in Windhelm, the Butcher, the locals call him, murdering and mutilating women and leaving them in the snow, and the Dragonborn, wandering through the stone quarter after dark, comes upon a fresh one, a barmaid dead in the graveyard, a ring of nervous guards, and the town priestess crouched over the body trying to make sense of the wounds. It plays out utterly unlike anything else in the game. No dungeon, no draugr, no dragon. Instead, a crime scene to examine, a blood trail to follow, witnesses to question, suspects to weigh. For one shining stretch, Skyrim stops being a fantasy epic and becomes a genuine detective story, and a good one. Two names rise to the top of your list. The first is Woundfirth, the Unliving, the Jarl's court wizard, a scowling old mage with an unsettling nickname and a well-earned reputation for dabbling in things decent folk avoid. The second is Calixto Corium, the affable, eccentric fellow who runs a little museum of oddities in town, Calixto's House of Curiosities, and who seems, on the surface, harmless as a bowl of soup. The whole quest turns on which of them you believe. And here is the first delicious twist the writing pulls. The obvious monster is innocent. Woundfirth, for all his creepiness, is not your killer. He's actually been tracking the murders himself, watching them line up with a grim astrological pattern, and if you bring him the strange amulet found at the scene, he'll identify it, explain the rhythm of the killings, and help you catch the real butcher in the very act of claiming his next victim. Accuse Woundfirth instead, throw him in a cell, and you'll learn your mistake the hard way, because another woman will die while the wrong man sits in prison. The real killer, of course, is genial little Calixto, and his reason is the quiet horror at the heart of the mystery. Tucked in a hidden chamber behind a wardrobe in the abandoned house called Yerim, the killer's lair, papered with "Beware the Butcher" flyers and cluttered with embalming tools, is the truth. Calixto has been harvesting pieces of his victims, body part by body part, in a deranged attempt to rebuild his dead sister and bring her back with the power of that necromancer's amulet. He is Skyrim's own small, sad Frankenstein, stitching a woman he loved out of women he killed. He even tries to buy the amulet off you if you let him, which, in hindsight, is a rather large clue you were chatting pleasantly with the murderer. That amulet, incidentally, is a prize in its own right, the Necromancer's Amulet, an old and ill-favored relic that has haunted the Elder Scrolls for ages, fattening your magicka and your restoration magic while it quietly strangles your ability to heal naturally. Fitting, really, that a trinket built for raising the dead should make it harder for the living to mend. Sell it to Calixto for a quick 500 gold and you can, thanks to another obliging bug, pickpocket it right back and sell it to him again and again, until either your conscience or your patience gives out. So far, so brilliant. Here's where the doors start jamming, and jamming permanently. Because Blood on the Ice is, by broad and weary consensus, the single buggiest quest in the base game, and it can be locked out of your save through no fault of your own, the trigger alone is a small nightmare. The murder scene is coded to appear only after you've visited Windhelm across several separate trips, and only if you happen to stroll through the Stone Quarter during the night hours. Miss that fragile window, and the whole quest simply never begins. You can live in Windhelm for 100 in-game days and never learn. A butcher was ever loose. But the truly infamous lockout is the house. Yerim, that grim crime scene, is also a purchasable player home, one of the nicest in the game, and here the game lays a trap for the efficient. If you've won the Civil War for the right side and made yourself Thane of Eastmarch, the steward may happily sell you Yerim before Blood on the Ice has ever triggered. And there is a bitter little knot of continuity in that too. Whether you can buy Yerim at all depends on how that first night's Civil War shook out. Since the house only comes up for sale once Windhelm has settled under one banner or the other, the war you won echoes all the way down into whether a murder mystery 3 cities over will even function. Buy the house, walk inside, and you have just quietly detonated the quest. The clues that were supposed to be waiting for your investigation are now furniture you cannot interact with. The hidden chamber won't cooperate. The whole delicate sequence of evidence and accusation collapses into a heap of dead ends. There is no in-game way back. Do not buy that house before you solve the murder, is one of those pieces of hard-won community wisdom passed player to player, like a ghost story around a campfire, because thousands of people learned it the hard way, standing in a beautiful new home they could never finish the quest inside of. And that's before you even get to the ordinary jank. Longtime players trade horror stories. The killer Calixto rendered unkillable by a stuck essential flag, standing there immortal while you flail at him. The quest stalling because you happen to be carrying a bounty. A witness who forgets she's part of the story and simply stands motionless by the wardrobe forever. A victim who gets murdered but refuses to die, throwing up her fists and squaring off with the killer like it's a bar fight. There's even a grimly funny edge case where a bereaved noblewoman, lost to her own grief earlier in your playthrough, can never turn up as the corpse the quest needs, so the mystery just never starts because the game misplaced its own body. Now for the tidbit that makes it all a little sadder. The obvious irony, the one the writers clearly intended, is that the wizard called the Unliving, the one everyone in town assumes is the necromancer, is the innocent man, while the smiling curator everyone likes is the ghoul. But look closer at Calixto and the tragedy deepens. He isn't killing for pleasure or power or a god's favor. He's killing out of grief, a man who lost his sister and could not let her go, who convinced himself that with enough dark magic and enough stolen pieces, he could reassemble the one person he loved. It's the same monstrous logic that drove that dying mage to pour his soul into Azura's star, the refusal to accept a death, twisted into slaughter. Windhelm's butcher is just love-gone necromantic. The community's relationship with this quest is one of pure, exasperated affection. It's routinely named both one of the best-written quests in Skyrim and one of the most cursed, a genuine, clever whodunit that any number of players have never managed to see through to the end, because it broke on them somewhere in the cold. The most repeated advice remains the simplest. Solve the murder first, buy the house second, save often, and pray. In a game full of doors locked by gods and kings and monsters, this is the one locked by a script held together with hope and frozen twine, and when it slams for good. Here's a lock of a stranger kind, one you close on yourself, on purpose, by doing the honorable thing. This one punishes you for finishing. The reward for completing the story is surrendering its single best prize, and the only way to keep that prize is to leave the tale forever hanging, one step short of its ending. The prize is the skeleton key, and to understand why players agonize over it, you have to understand the small daily misery it erases. In Skyrim, lockpicks break constantly. You crouch at a master lock, ease the pick around, feel for the sweet spot, and snap. There goes another one, and another, a little pile of bent metal at your knees. The skeleton key ends all of that forever. It is an unbreakable lockpick, a Daedric artifact of Nocturnal, the Night Mistress, and it simply never shatters. One pick, any lock, for the rest of the game. It makes the entire lockpicking skill tree, perks, leveling, the lot, more or less pointless. Even if you get thrown in jail and stripped of your gear, the single lockpick they let you keep is the skeleton key, quietly waiting to spring you. You take it off a corpse. Deep in the Thieves Guild questline, you learn that the guild's long slide into bad luck and ruin traces back to a theft. Mercer Frey, the guild's own corrupt master, stole the skeleton key from its resting place in Nocturnal's shrine, and in doing so slammed shut the door to her realm and cut off the flow of fortune that had always kept thieves' fingers nimble and their escapes lucky. You hunt Mercer down beneath a colossal Dwemer statue in the ruin of Erkenthand, in one of the toughest fights the guild throws at you, and when he finally falls, you pluck the key from his body, and now it's yours, indefinitely. You can walk out of that ruin and use it forever, and the game will not stop you, but the game very much wants it back. The final quest of the guild's story, called Darkness Returns, exists for one purpose: to make you walk the pilgrim's path deep into the Twilight Sepulchre and return the skeleton key to where it belongs, restoring the guild's luck and fulfilling your oath. And it is a genuinely haunted little pilgrimage. The sepulchre, deprived of the key for so long, has curdled. Its guardian spirits, once loyal nightingales, have gone hostile and hollow in the dark, and they drift out of the shadows to stop you. The ghost of Gallus, the honorable guildmaster Mercer murdered to steal the key in the first place, meets you at the threshold and guides you inward, mourning what his old sanctuary has become. Along the way you pass the bones of a would-be thief named Nistrum, who came here chasing the same trials and never walked back out. A quiet skeleton in the corner, a warning to anyone who thinks the pilgrim's path is a stroll. And here's the sharp edge of it. The moment you slot that key back into the Ebonmere, it is gone, permanently. There is no keeping a copy, no getting it back, no talking Nocturnal into letting you hold on to it for old time's sake. You must return it to finish the quest line, to become a true nightingale, to take your place as guildmaster. So the choice crystallizes into something genuinely painful for a certain kind of player. Keep the greatest convenience item in the game, and leave the Thieves Guild story frozen one quest short of its conclusion. Forever. Or finish the story properly and hand back the one thing you'll miss every single time a lock stands between you and someone else's valuables. What makes this one delicious and worth its place on our list is a little twist of accounting. All night we've been tallying Daedric artifacts toward that Oblivion Walker achievement. 15 relics of the princes, each quest a tick on the list. You might reasonably assume the skeleton key, a genuine artifact of a genuine prince, counts too. It does not, because it isn't handed out by its own dedicated Daedric quest. It's woven into the guild's story instead. The game politely declines to count it toward Oblivion Walker at all. So the single most useful Daedric artifact in all of Skyrim is also the one that earns you no credit for having it. Whether you keep it or return it, your achievement tally doesn't so much as flicker. The choice is purely about the item itself, stripped of any completionist excuse. Do you want the unbreakable key, or don't you? Now for the tidbit, and it's a big one, because in the wider lore the skeleton key is not merely a lockpick that doesn't break. It is one of the most quietly dangerous objects in the entire Elder Scrolls universe. It doesn't unlock only doors. It unlocks all things, sealed portals, buried secrets, and most temptingly, a person's own hidden potential, the natural limits on what a mortal is capable of becoming. Ancient wizards, terrified of it, bound it with 2 rules. It can be used only once a day, and it will never stay with any one thief for long, always slipping away in the end to return to its mistress. Mercer Frey, the man you killed to get it, had used it precisely that way, not to open chests, but to unlock himself, granting his own body powers no ordinary thief should have. In Skyrim, the game hands you the tiniest sliver of all that, the door-opening function, and nothing more. You are holding a key that could, in the right story, unlock the boundaries of your own soul, and you're using it to jimmy open a merchant's strongbox. That gap between what the key is and what you get to do with it is one of the great quiet jokes of the whole setting. And the fandom argues the trade endlessly, because there is no clean answer. One camp says, never give it back. Lockpicks may be cheap and plentiful, but the sheer frictionless convenience of a pick that never breaks is worth more than any reward, and leaving one quest unfinished is a small price to never think about lockpicks again. The other camp counters that lockpicking becomes trivially easy anyway once you've got the feel of it, that picks weigh nothing and cost nearly nothing, and that the 3 unique Nightingale powers you unlock by finishing, chief among them a genuinely excellent invisibility, are far more valuable than a slightly nicer key. And beneath the practical debate hums a darker lore note that gives even the finish it camp pause. Becoming a Nightingale means swearing your very soul to Nocturnal, pledging to spend your afterlife not in any warm hall of heroes, but as a shadow in her twilight realm, a servant in the dark for as long as she requires. The luck you restore to the guild is real, The bill for it comes due after you die, and it is steeper than most who sign it ever quite realize. So the Dragonborn stands at the Ebonmere with the father of all keys in hand, the ghost of a murdered guildmaster looking on, Nocturnal's shadow pooling in the dark ahead. Turn the key in that final lock, and the guild's fortune floods back, and you rise a nightingale and a master of thieves, and the unbreakable key vanishes from your grasp forever. Or turn away, walk back up the pilgrim's path with the key still in your pocket, and keep it for all your days, at the cost of a story that will never, ever be finished, hanging open behind you, like a door you decided not to close. In a game obsessed with locks, this is the only one you seal by choosing to be true to your word. And so we come to the last door on our list, and it is the largest of them all. Because behind this one isn't a single artifact, or a single companion, or a single quest. Behind this one is an entire quest line, one of the most beloved in the whole game, and you can erase every last scrap of it with a single swing of your blade. It begins with a child's prayer to darkness. In the orphanage in Riften, a cruel woman named Grelad the Kind, a name that is, let's say, generously ironic, torments the children in her care, and one desperate boy performs the Black Sacrament, the ancient blood ritual that summons the Dark Brotherhood to kill on your behalf. The Dragonborn, hearing of it, can go and put Grelad down, and in doing so they steal a kill that wasn't theirs to make. The Brotherhood notices. They always notice. You go to sleep, an ordinary adventurer, and wake up somewhere else entirely. A windowless shack, a locked door, and a woman named Astrid perched on a bookshelf, watching you with amused, dangerous eyes. She explains the situation with the cheerful menace of a cat who has cornered something small. You owe the Brotherhood a life. There are 3 people bound and hooded on the floor in front of you, a Khajiit, a Nord, and a Dark Elf, each of them insisting the others are the guilty one. Kill any of them, kill all of them if you like, and the debt is paid. Do that, and Astrid welcomes you into the family, and you're off into one of the finest quest lines Skyrim ever wrote. The Night Mother whispering from her coffin, the unhinged little jester Cicero, the slow climb toward the single most audacious contract in the game, the assassination of the Emperor of all Tamriel himself, aboard his own ship. Or you look at Astrid and the 3 terrified strangers she's ordered you to murder for no reason but her convenience, and you decide you'd rather not. You draw your weapon, and instead of a hostage, you kill her. Astrid has a long, showy little animation as she hops down off that bookshelf, and throughout the whole of it, she cannot fight back, which makes putting a blade in the Brotherhood's leader startlingly easy. You loot her unique dagger, the Blade of Woe, from her cooling body. You free the 3 captives who cannot believe their luck, and you walk out of that shack having just started an entirely different quest, one called simply Destroy the Dark Brotherhood. Tell any city guard what you've done, and you'll be pointed toward Commander Maro of the Penitus Oculatus, the Emperor's elite protectors, the very order that took up the duty of guarding emperors after the blades fell from grace, those same blades we knelt with back near the start of all this. Maro has been hunting the Brotherhood for ages and can hardly believe his luck. He hands you the passphrase to their hidden sanctuary, "Silence, my brother," and asks you to walk in and end every assassin inside. So you travel to the sanctuary southwest of Falkreath, murmur the words at the carved black door, the one that asks, in a low, dead voice, what the music of life is, and accept silence as the answer, and step into the family's home to slaughter them one by one. And it is a family. That's the thing the quest quietly makes you feel. Nazir, the sardonic Redguard, who's always got another small contract for you, old Festus Krex grumbling over his spells, Gabriella, Vizara, the noble lizard folk warrior, Arnbjorn the werewolf smith, who is, of all things, Astrid's devoted husband. On the joined path, they become people you'd take an arrow for. On this path, you meet them for the first time, only to cut them down in their own kitchen and bedrooms, strangers who never got the chance to be anything to you but marks. The frostbite spider they keep as a pet doesn't even have to die, if that's any comfort, which isn't. And when it's done, you go back to Morrow, who is overjoyed, and he presses 3,000 gold into your hand and promises the Emperor will hear your name. 3,000 gold. That's the reward. And here's the lock, the largest single act of content deletion the game will ever let you commit. By killing Astrid instead of a hostage, you have not skipped a quest, you have deleted a quest line. The entire Dark Brotherhood story, gone. No Night Mother, no Cicero, no growing into the role of listener, no contract to kill the Emperor, no immortal ghost horse Shadowmere waiting loyally outside, no summoned spectral assassin to call a killer from the void, no shrouded armor, no Dawnstar sanctuary to make your own, no glittering pile of contract gold that would have dwarfed Marrow's little purse many times over. All of it, every hour of it, erased on a single save the instant you chose the law over the family. 3,000 gold and a nice dagger, in exchange for one of the richest stories Bethesda ever hid inside this game. Now, for the tidbit that gives the Brotherhood its shivery weight, and it reaches back into some genuinely old darkness. The Night Mother, the spectral matron whose coffin Cicero drags around, whose voice guides the listener, was, in the deep lore, a mortal woman who bore 5 children to the dread god Sithis, the primordial void at the heart of the Brotherhood's faith. And then, as her devotion, she murdered all 5 of them and offered them to him. That is the mother the assassins pray to, a woman who sacrificed her own children to the darkness and became its saint. When you walk into that sanctuary to wipe the family out, you're not just killing a few skilled murderers. You're extinguishing the last flickering remnant of one of the oldest and strangest religions in Tamriel, and the game lets you do it for the same wage as a week of odd jobs. The community has a complicated love for this choice, precisely because almost nobody takes it the first time. The Dark Brotherhood questline is routinely ranked among the very best content in Skyrim. Funny, dark, genuinely surprising, building to a set piece most players never forget, and the destroy path throws all of it in the fire. For years, the running wisdom has been that it's the single most wasteful decision in the game, a trap for the unwary righteous who don't realize that refusing Astrid doesn't just decline one grim task, but incinerates dozens of hours of story. And yet a quieter camp defends it, even admires it, because how many games will actually let you say no? A truly good, truly lawful character, dragged from their bed and ordered to butcher 3 strangers for a cult's amusement, ought to be able to refuse and turn the blade the other way and hunt the killers instead. Skyrim lets them. It costs you a masterpiece of a questline to do it, but it's your masterpiece to burn, and the game respects your right to strike the match. So the Dragonborn stands in that dim shack one final time, the leader of the assassins smirking down from her perch, 3 hooded strangers trembling on the floor, and a whole hidden world waiting on the far side of a single decision. Kill a captive, and the family opens its arms, and an epic of shadow and betrayal and regicide unfurls before you. Kill Astrid, and the family dies to the last soul, and that entire epic winks out of existence, unwritten, unplayed, sealed away behind the heaviest door on our whole list. There is no reopening it. There never is. And there, gently, we can let the night settle. 15 doors, all of them closed now, all of them quiet. Think of how many times over these long hours the Dragonborn stood at some threshold with a choice in hand. A banner to raise, a dragon to spare, a friend to keep or lose, a stranger to save or to sacrifice, and how each of those small, ordinary moments turned out to be a hinge the whole world swung upon, the war that ended one way and never the other. The wise old voice on the mountaintop, the weary woman by the sea, and the single kind question that could set her free. The dog and the priest, and the key you decided whether or not to give back. Where your hands, and no one else's, shaped the story that got told. The doors you didn't open are still out there in the dark, waiting in all the games you'll never play. And that's all right. You can't walk through every one. Nobody can. That was never the point. So let those unchosen paths drift off now like snow settling over a quiet road. Let the war camps go silent. Let the shrines grow cold. Let the great statues stand alone under the stars with no one climbing their steps. The Dragonborn can rest. And so at last can you. No more choices to weigh tonight, no more doors to guard, nothing left to do but breathe slow and sink down warm and let the long white quiet of Skyrim carry you off. Sleep well, Lore Master.